Welcome to YFLO's very own version of the Met Gala. Fashion today, ideas and inspiration. I'd like to extend a special warm welcome to Harjinder Kaur, President, FICCI Ladies Organization, past presidents of FLO and YFLO, all our GB members and our YFLO members, to this glamorous morning of deep conversations on the business of fashion. Coco Chanel once said, fashion has two purposes, comfort and love. Beauty comes when fashion succeeds. But we believe fashion has another very important purpose. It brings all you beautiful people together. To tell us more about today's event, I'd like to call upon the Chairperson of YFLO Delhi, Ms. Mandira Lamba.
Thank you, Shivani. Good morning. According to McKinsey & Company, in their The State of Fashion 2019 report, and I quote, India is increasingly a focal point for the fashion industry, reflecting a rapidly growing middle class and increasingly powerful manufacturing sector. These, together with strong economic fundamentals and growing tech savvy, make India too important for international brands to ignore. Hence, today's event, Fashion, Ideas and Inspirations, is an attempt to step beyond the glamour quotient to understand the business of fashion, which makes it a $3,000 billion industry globally. We will also explore the source of inspiration for such a highly creative and dynamic industry and examine the influence of the Indian film industry and vice versa. We are fortunate to have an impressive lineup of guests from the field of fashion. In the first session, Monica Kalra, editor Harper's Bazaar, will be in conversation with actor Diana Penty, stylist Mohit Rai, designers Grimson Dadu and Arpita Mehta. In the second session, she will be talking to actor Jim Saraf, Saudamini Mattu, CEO Abu Sandeep, and designers Shivan and Naresh. 100 of our members have already experienced contemporary fashion. They've been dressed by the immensely talented Shweta Kapoor, Kanika Goyal, Anand Bhushan, Dhruv Kapoor, Outhouse, Grimson Dadu, and Shivan Naresh. Do keep a lookout for these members and have a chat with them about their experience. Before I hand it back to Shivani, may I thank you for the overwhelming response to today's event. Really, thank you all for participating and being dressed. And may I also call on you to continue supporting our endeavor to make YFLO soar higher through the power of now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandira. Now it's time to begin our first session this morning, setting up a business in India as a young entrepreneur, the challenges and successes. Please welcome on stage the panelists. First up is Grimson Dadu, who set up her individual label in 2007. Since then, she has showcased seasonal lines of women's wear at the fashion weeks in Mumbai and New Delhi, along with several international trade shows. Her work has been showcased at the prestigious Victoria and Albert Museum, London, and has been featured in many international and national media. Welcome, Grimson. Next, I'd like to call upon the woman who began her modeling career in the year 2005. She is considered a fashion icon today and stands tall as a successful actress with movies like Cocktail, Parmanu, Happy Bhag Jayegi in her back. Please put your hands together in welcoming the very beautiful Diana Penty. Our next panelist is someone who won the most glamorous Designer of the Year award in her graduating fashion show. Her label, launched in 2007, concentrates on understated, attractive and detailed silhouettes. Her designs have been adorned by Bollywood actresses like Deepika Padukone, Madhuri Dixit, Kareena Kapoor, to name a few. Please put your hands together for Arpita Mehta. And our final panelist, the official stylist at Lakme Fashion Week stage run, celebrity stylist and creative consultant to young fashion entrepreneurs, and the fashion director at Harper's Bazaar Bride, India for 2 years. Please welcome Mohit Rai. I'd also like to call on stage the session moderator Nonita Kalra, editor Harper's Bazaar, to take things forward. Nonita needs no introduction. She has had nearly 3 decades of media experience and is an influencer in the fashion, beauty and lifestyle circles. Her ideas and initiatives have shaped careers and launched trends. Welcome Nonita, and over to you.
Thank you for that very generous introduction. When I see how many years I've been working, I feel I should be retired or at least pickled. But I think I'm sort of a little bit at a loss for words because it's very rare to have an audience as beautifully dressed as all of you. It's nice to see fashion being worn in the individual way that women tend to take it. A designer may make the clothes, but the way each one of you put it together is extremely beautiful and a little bit intimidating, especially to someone who only wears black. Yeah, I'm lazy. But we're not here to talk about lazy. We're here to talk about 4 really driven young people. When you want to start your own business, the first thing you're told is you've got to be stupid. That's what my father told me, which is why I still have a job. But I think it's exciting as well because one of the things we were talking about is the excitement of being your own boss. You imagine that no one's going to tell you what to do and your deadlines will be flexible, but I don't think that's the case. Arpita, let's start with you. What made you set up your own label?
So I probably started out in 2009, and there are 2 parts of why I started out my business. One was the aspiration side of it, that I want to become a fashion designer. And the second part is what I actually want to do once I become a fashion designer. And what kind of a brand I want to create. So talking about the aspirational part of it, being when you're going to school, you have your summer holidays. I used to keep going over these international fashion magazines, and I never understood the product or anything about fashion, but I just knew that it looked visually very appealing. I just loved the clothes. And I think that was the first time when I realized that I want to do something related to fashion or make such beautiful clothes. So that was the first brush with fashion, as I'd say. And then being a good student, I was always like the hardworking kind. I got a good score in my 10th. Then I moved on to doing science for 2 years. And after doing that for 2 years, there was that time, when you have to decide what do you want to do next. Is it going to be medicine? Is it going to be engineering? Or is it going to be fashion? So I just knew I wanted to do fashion. I went ahead and did that. And then my parents just told me, do whatever you want, do whatever makes you happy. And I just had one of my uncles telling me, oh my God, you cannot become a tailor. And I said, no, I'm not going to become a tailor. I'm going to be creating something. I'm going to be making amazing clothes. And I love doing that. And he was so upset. He said, no, you shouldn't be doing this. I'm telling you, you cannot go to fashion school. You just have to stop right away. And you need to do something meaningful. And that's when I told him, this is meaningful. I can't imagine myself doing anything else, and this is what I want to do. And now looking back, when I meet him and he's so proud of what I've done, and he's like, I'm so sorry I judged you when I told you not to do this. And I think it's very important.
Is his daughter a fashion designer now, or did she have to become a doctor?
No, so my family is not connected to any sort of fashion or doctrine or anything of that sort. But you know how it's like a social norm, you know, like when I was studying, it's like either you do arts, you do commerce, or you do science. It was like whenever you ask someone, what are you going to become? They say, oh, I'll become a dentist, or I'll become a CA. I mean, fashion wasn't really that looked up to, you know. Everyone thought that, oh, okay, it's one of those things that probably isn't that interesting. But over the years, you kind of, once you start studying, once you start working, that's when you realize that there's so much more that one can do in the fashion industry. It's not about just being a designer. Like we have got Mohit, he's a stylist. There are umpteen, like what you do. You could be the editor of a magazine. There's so much one can do in this whole industry. And fashion designing more so came to me because I wanted to make clothes for myself. I couldn't afford those expensive Indian couture designers because back then you just had like these 10 odd amazing famous designers. You love their stuff, you love their product, but you can't afford it. So you're like, what are you going to do? How am I going to wear these amazing clothes? So I guess somewhere even that kind of pushed me into the direction of starting my own line because I couldn't pick a ready outfit from the retail stores, the ones that you get. They never fit well, they don't feel good. The quality of the product isn't great. So I guess it's the mix of both these emotions that pushed me into the direction of starting my own line.
Rimzim, what made you start your brand? And let's talk a little bit. Yes, it's important to study fashion, but what about studying the business of fashion, of learning how to balance an Excel sheet?
So, actually for me it was quite the opposite. So my family's been into the business of garments, like my dad is a garment exporter. So I've literally like grown up, you know, surrounded by fabrics and textiles and the whole craft of it. So for me it came very naturally. In fact, like when I remember I was in like class 2nd or 3rd and you know, usually people are asked what do you want to be when you grow up and everybody's like pilot, teacher, and I was just like fashion designer and kids back in the 2nd grade were like, what the hell is that, you know? So
you back in the 2nd grade?
Yeah. I always knew that I wanted to do something with clothes. I didn't even know what fashion designer meant or what, you know, they're supposed to do, but just because I'd like always seen my dad like working with, you know, textiles and I'd seen the whole business aspect of it, I knew that I wanted to do that. But coming back to it, I started really early. I started when I was 21. So coming back to the whole business aspect of it, I was really not, you know, super commercial at that time. And, you know, I was living in a very idealistic world where I wanted to just sort of, you know, make unimaginable clothes. I always wanted to like, you know, experiment with different things, materials. I would make clothes out of steel, plastic, acrylic and stuff like that. And people would be like, you know, this is great, but you know, who's going to wear that? So I think it's been about 10 years and, you know, I've taken this journey where I've sort of tried to balance my creative and idealistic side to like actually making things commercial and actually understanding my audience and what they want and actually taking my aesthetic to a bigger audience. So the business side of it, it could be Excel sheets, it could be taxes, it could be the new GST that I still try to wrap my head around. It did not come naturally to me, the whole creative aspect of it, the textile and the fabric aspect of it came very naturally to me, but it takes a lot of learning to actually wrap your head around the commerce of it. It could be, you know, just something as simple as how to retail your clothes, you know, how to market your brand. So it takes time, and you know, these things are not really taught in business, in fashion school.
But do you not think of all of this before you decide, I'm going to be a business person? Because, I mean, step one is you sit down and say, this is how much money I have, this is how much I'm going to spend, and in the end, this is how much I'm going to earn. Did you even think of all of this? Because to set up your own business is the stupidest thing to do, and the smartest, right?
For me, like, I wanted it to be very organic. Like, I wanted to start really small. And I wanted to see how it goes and where it goes. So when I started out, I'll be very honest, I did not have a business plan. I literally started with like 2 tailors, and I was like, okay, let's see where it goes. And for me, like, things grew very organically, and it's been 10 years, you know. it's not happened overnight. So, over a period of time, like I started tweaking my, let's say, like business plans, or actually developing the business plan for that matter. So for me, it was a very sort of like organic process that happened. And I did not like one day be like, this is a business plan and I'm going to launch my label. In fact, when I started out, doing Fashion Week was not very simple. Like, this was in 2007. I think Lakme then had a Gen Next program. And my dad was like, why don't you send an application? And I was like, there are like hundreds of kids who apply. I'm not going to get through. And he's like, just send an application. And I just sent an application, and so it was just very organic.
So how important is luck in developing your own business? And this is for both of you.
For me also, it's been very organic, as Rimson mentioned. I just started out with the idea that I wanted to do something that I like. I wanted to make something for myself. And in the process of doing so, because back then there was no social media or Instagram, it was all word of mouth. So it was literally someone bought something, liked it, they told another 10 people, and that's how it grew. And it's over the years that, like she said, we've managed to understand the business of fashion. If I actually think about it, if I had a little more knowledge back then, I could have probably structured my business better, which would have been more helpful now. But then again, I guess you learn so much over the past few years, like during your journey, that I guess it's also, it has its ups as well, because you get to know by all your mistakes that you've made over the years. So I think that's good.
Luck, I feel, is sometimes super important because, sometimes you get those right moments, the right person wearing the right thing at the right time. So sometimes, of course, luck is super important as well, but it's not all luck, it can't be.
I don't think it's all luck when you start like Mohan. Working in a magazine and editorial is roughly like this. You beg a photographer, you beg the makeup artist, you beg the hairstylist, you beg the studio, you try and get something for free, and then you're underpaid, right? So let's talk about our journey.
Yeah, so
and you're doing it as an individual, which is even more terrifying.
It's a lot more terrifying because you're a lot more responsible for everything. I mean, when you do have the magazine behind you, which, I started on the same magazine that you're at now. You still have an organization behind you to support you. So if you make mistakes, they'll cover up for you. But when you're doing it as an individual, it's you in the line of fire. And especially when your assistants are the ones making mistakes, then you're especially all the more in the line of fire. I think for me, it started out very similar to her, very opposed by a lot of people in the family because I come from a lot of people in finance. Pretty much my whole family is, my dad's a banker, my sister's a banker. Everyone's pretty much been bankers all their life. So for them to understand a boy in their family wanting to get into fashion was something that they couldn't grasp at all. So when I did explain to them that I want to get into, at that point, honestly, styling wasn't a very, I think it wasn't a very informed choice. I don't think many people understood it as a career. This is 10 years ago. So even though there was a generation of stylists before me, which is Anaita and Aki and Gautam and Mohan, it still didn't become as mainstream as it has now. So it was very hard to get them to understand that I want to get into design or I want to get into styling at that point. So which obviously I did because they didn't understand that I would be very unsuccessful at anything else. So which is why
why would you be unsuccessful?
Because I wasn't that great a student, and pretty much the only thing I think they saw me doing well at was the creative arts. So they allowed me to do it purely because they didn't want to support me their whole life, I think. So, once they had great business and they didn't let me. So, I got into an IFT and did a design course, and pretty much right out of the gate, I got an internship at Bazaar, which had just launched that same year. And then was offered a job and slowly worked my way up in the magazine. Then when the Bazaar Bride was launched, was offered the fashion editor position there. And there obviously I experimented a lot and discovered my personal style and a lot of other things that comes and encompasses being a stylist, apart from just begging the photographers and the models to do it for free. I think the natural progression was to eventually
styling. It's a difficult business. So much of what everybody does here on this panel is not something that's quantifiable, right? If you experience it and you feel it, everyone has judgment on it. I'm always meeting people who tell me, well, I can write a book, and I'm like, please do. Or I'm a stylist, I make my own clothes. I hear that 100 times.
how did you feel that you were going to persuade somebody that your services were necessary?
So again, like I said, it's become a lot more mainstream now, and I think in the last 5 years, it's become a lot more mainstream with the whole advent of the celebrity styling culture. I think primarily, I think you have to credit Sonam and Riya to begin this culture very strongly. I think when they started putting out couture at normal events, people started looking like people started judging everyone else that why aren't you dressing up like her? So, and then when the whole fashion policing started, I think a lot of celebrities got very intimidated by that. Otherwise, honestly, I think before that, they just used to wear their movie costumes, or they would call Manish, or they would call Abu Sandeep, and they would borrow an outfit from them and just wear it themselves and style it themselves. I don't think they had any sense of putting a look together. But because I think it started being criticized so much, is why people felt the need to get a professional to do it. So I think that created a market for people like me. And to convince people, honestly, it's a bit hard in the beginning. You have to understand. It's because you're dealing with a personality, you're dealing with an opinion, you're not just dealing with the product, you're not just trying to sell that this is what I make, if you like it, buy it, if you don't like it, I can tweak it to you. You're trying to sell someone an opinion, which is much, I think it's a lot harder because you can get an outfit, I mean anyone can honestly go to the mall and get an outfit for you, but to put it together in the correct manner and convince them of wearing it true to their own personal individual style, I think it's a lot harder. And I think you also discover what somebody prefers over a period of time of working with them, their understandings, their personal aesthetics. I think like someone like a Diana has a very unique individual aesthetic. So she would only wear something, even if she were to wear something out of the box, she would tweak it to her own style. So I think you have to understand that personal style and help someone reach the best of that rather than imposing your own opinion.
That sort of brings me to you, Diana. It's interesting that we're sitting here with people who run brands, but you are a brand. And I find that really interesting. How did you, and I've met you on your first shoot.
Every time I see you, Nonita, that's the first thing I think of.
Yeah, and I am horrified at what we did.
Yes.
We published it as well, and it was Diana and Frida with Prasad. And you know how when shoots are going wrong, and you keep trying to overfix it, well, we added props of plastic, we turned the background pink, then we turned it into plastic. It was one of those shoots that was, I mean, I still have nightmares about it, but Diana was one of the shyest people I knew. And luckily it was a geek chic shoot, so we just said stand and look geeky. The next time I worked with you, you were on my cover, and you were a completely different person. I think we'd flown down clothes from Rome, from Fendi, and you suddenly knew the camera in a way that Farooq went, what happened over here? How did this shy girl become that model into an actor? How conscious were you of your brand? Because that is your business now.
I was so sure that I was written off as a model the first time we did that shoot together.
My fault.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like my personality has come in the way a lot, especially when I started out, which was so many years ago that, you know, I was really young. I was still in college, I think. 17, yeah, something like that. And it's strange because I never really thought that I would be a model or an actor for that matter. And what's ironic is that I've grown up, you know, being exposed to the industry, to the fashion fraternity from the time I was very young, as you know.
Diana's uncle is,
yes.
I think, maybe the foremost fashion photographer, Denzel, right?
Yes, Denzel
And his images are still iconic. She grew up in a very beautiful home that's also a maternity hospital.
It used to be.
It used to be,
a
yes.
long time ago. So yes, so I mean, Denzel is my uncle. I had my aunt was a model.
First Faces of Lakme, right?
Yes, she was.
Yes, Sharon Sequeira.
Yes, and a lot of shoots, because Denzel's studio is in the same house that I live in, so a lot of shoots used to happen at home. And I've seen, you know, from the time I was year high, I've seen, you know, top models, top actors, top actresses coming home to shoot, and I've just been exposed to it from the time I was really young. I subconsciously knew how it worked. You know, I knew what used to happen, how to pose, but my personality always held me back, and so I never, and apparently I was a decent looking kid, so I did a lot of work as a child as well. I shot for magazines, you know, the catalogs, and did one or two ad shoots as well when I was 3 years old. But then, I don't know, I grew up, and you know, the awkward ages happened. I got very self-conscious. I was extremely shy, and never ever imagined doing anything that put me in the spotlight. Which is...
So what shifted? Because, I mean, we had a long conversation. You wanted to be a model. You said, I will never be an actor. By the way, there are so many people who've told me I will never be an actor.
Never say
and
never.
Next thing you know, they're the most famous people and they don't recognize you and you're like, I have an interview somewhere.
Exactly.
What happened?
Like I said, I never knew I would be a model either. I was studying marketing. I was in Xavier's. I thought I was going to go to Boston after that to do like this master's in global marketing communications and advertising, be on the other side of it. I kind of got pushed into it. Farooq Chotia, he's a very close family friend, one of Denzel's closest friends. And since Denzel wasn't doing anything for me in terms of, he was very protective of me. So he kept saying, no, give her time, she needs to mature, let her finish college, then we'll see. And Farooq's like, no, but the time is now. So if you're not taking pictures of her, I will. So he took pictures of me and sent them to Elite Model Management, which is the biggest modeling agency in those days. And they called me, and it all happened, I don't even know how, because I had nothing to do with it. All I did was pose for those pictures, and those pictures were also very funny. They were only laughing. Because every time Farooq said, okay, we need to take slightly sexy pictures, and I just like, ha 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 ha, that's really funny.
I remember Farooq being more embarrassed than you. He's like, she's grown up in front of me. I can't take a sexy picture. It was the worst shoot.
It was terrible.
I mean, the two of them were just giggling. It took forever.
So all my portfolio pictures, the first lot of them, were me grinning from ear to ear. But I mean, Elite, they wanted to sign me on. They called me, said, come for a meeting. And I said, wow, this is moving too fast. I don't know if I want to do this. But I said, let me go meet anywhere. I was still in college. I met them, and I said, listen, I'm in Xavier's. They have a very strict attendance policy. I kind of use that as my buffer. And I said, so I'm not sure I can do this. So they said, no, but that's fine. You can pick and choose what you want to do. And, on days that you're free, and if it's a really big campaign, or if it's a really big shoot, you decide whether you want to take a day off or what, it's up to you. So I realized that since the ball was in my court and I could do this the way I wanted to, I said, why not give it a shot just to see?
And Cocktail was pretty much like that as well. Why not give it a shot?
And exactly, that's exactly what it was. My modeling eventually led to films. And we were in fact shooting in Rome for the Elle cover, and that's when I got a call for Cocktail saying that they were looking for a new girl to launch in this film. And I thought to myself, wow, I don't know if I want to do films, because those were the days that I said, I'll never be an actor. But I said, again, let me go meet, let's see how it goes. And it just, one thing led to another, and I had the role the next day.
What was your biggest challenge, other than overcoming shyness? And you're still incredibly shy.
But I'm way better than I was. I feel also like with time, it
was speaking Hindi. I mean, you studied very hard for each one of your roles, because we've met in between and you've told me, well, I'm studying this, I'm studying acting, I'm doing all of this.
I think my biggest challenge was that I was from a non-acting background. I had no formal training in acting. It's not even like I took drama in school or anything. So for me, it was all so new. And like I said, I was a very shy, reserved person. So just open up and be a performer was very difficult and challenging for me, especially for my first film, because that was the first time in front of the camera. But I was so lucky to A, have a debut like Cocktail, and B, to have the most wonderful people on that team with me, from the director, Homi, to producer, Dinesh. They just made sure that I was perfectly trained and, for the part. So whether it was sending me to acting school for a 1-month crash course at New York Film Academy, which I know you can't learn how to act in 1 month, but it just exposes you to, as a first-time actor, it exposes you to very important things. To dance class, to diction, voice modulation. They just put me through all the possible training at that time, which prepared me enough for my first film. And I think that what I learned from my first film, that will always be very special. And I think your best learnings are, from your first.
Well, challenges, I think, are common to all three of you. Rimzim, I remember a lot of your shows and your presentations, you actually laid out on the ramp how your craft was done. And your clothes look impossible to wear, but are a dream, actually. What was your biggest challenge? Was it your very USP that was your challenge? The fact that you try and do, wearable art, in a sense?
My biggest challenge, yes, I think, like I said in the beginning, when I started out, I was living in a bubble where I just wanted to make beautiful looking clothes out of the weirdest materials. But then over time, I realized that it has to, there's no point of just making things if it's not reaching the right audience. So I think my biggest challenge was, how do I sort of like get a sense of like commercial aspect to my designs, and yet like I really had struggled, and not really struggled, but like tried very hard to create my niche, which was, like a unique aesthetic, which was experimental, which was almost like a futuristic sort of vibe, and I did not want to lose that. So how do I still stick to my niche, but like grow my brand, reach out to more people, make it more acceptable, make it more approachable? So that was the biggest challenge. And I realized that, you have to sort of like, sometimes you have to sort of play things that are not working for you, you have to sort of like play to them. Like how complicated my clothes were to, let's say, like produce and make. I realized that's probably one of my strengths, and I should not let it hold me back. In fact, I should showcase to the world how long it takes to actually come up with things. So we had a show in which we sort of brought our entire studio into the show area, onto the ramp, where people could actually go and interact with our artisans, see how we're actually making things. There were like studio stations being set up, where everybody was, my entire studio and my artisans were actually fabricating things live in front of people. So then we had a show where I sort of like used 3D mapping and projection to sort of take inspiration from our weaves and almost let our weaves come to life. So I thought, I have to, my clothes are labor intensive, they take a lot of time, they look super futuristic, but they're super, super crafty. But how do I sort of like showcase this to the world, and how do I like sort of play it to my strength?
Arpita, you work with mirror work. I mean, that's kind of, it's considered really traditional. It's considered also something that you don't see a lot. It's not considered on trend. What made you choose that?
So to begin with, in the first few years, I was struggling just to put a good team together to kind of make the product that I want to create. So once that was in place, to try and identify with something that I love and make it commercially viable was another different ballgame altogether, because by the time I made my product, which I loved, it turned out to be so expensive. And then I was thinking, how am I going to sell this piece? And embroidery was my forte. Mirror work was something that I'd loved right from the beginning, and I wanted to reinvent it because everyone saw it in a very typical Desi Gujarati light, because as we all know, it's a craft which is from Gujarat, and it is very loud and it is very coarse. So I had to refine it and make it in such a way that one could wear it, not like, it's not, people don't look at it as a Garba outfit, but people could wear it for any event. It could be maybe a red carpet event, it could be a wedding, it could be a simple brunch. So I think that was the most challenging part for me, to convert it into something which is modern, which is contemporary, and at the same time, something that someone can relate to and would be very open about buying the product.
Mohit, what's been your biggest challenge and yet your USP? Because from what I hear, one is you have to have passion. You have to love what you do and then figure out the finance around it. And I think life teaches you whether you want to learn or not. What's been your USP and your biggest struggle?
I think definitely the biggest struggle, and again the biggest challenge, for sure, is people. I think in all aspects of it, one, collecting enough people to work for you that sort of work with your aesthetic and getting them aligned to your vision. And then also the clients, I think, like I said earlier, everyone comes with their own individual, unique style. So having to align yourself to them whilst staying true to your own personal aesthetic, it's very important.
What is your personal aesthetic? Do you want to describe it for everybody?
My personal aesthetic, I think it's pretty obviously pretty out there and pretty OTT and glam. I don't like minimalism. Even if it's minimal, it's pretty loud. So I'm an Indian at heart.
What do you mean? Minimal can't be loud. Minimal, maximal, right?
The maximal minimal, yeah. So I'm not. Yeah, definitely, 100%. I'm an Indian at heart, so I've grown up with couture and finery, and I really believe in that. And I do think that that's a luxury that we're taught. When we're kids, we go to school, our uniforms are customized, everything is bespoke for us. So I've grown up with that. So for me, everything couture and luxe I'm a luxury stylist. I don't believe in like cheap fashion personally. So
To put it mildly.
To put it honestly. So yeah, I mean, I do like to, even if it's a classic chic LBD, how to make it look more expensive and make it look even more luxe and extra, personally. So I think that's my USP, and then to get people to be aligned to that, every client of yours individually in their own unique way, it's a bit hard, and then to also understand their personalities and sort of work around that. I think that's been the biggest challenge. Yeah, and I also feel a lot of the times stylists get judged only. I mean, I worked in editorial, I think, a lot longer than I've worked in the whole celebrity scene. But I do think a lot of my work has only been noticed or judged when I've been working with celebrities, because that is the only time I think people actually start looking at your work. For example, on Instagram, if you put an editorial image, which may be an image in which you put like 1,000 hours to put together, you'll get like 50 likes. And then you put a celebrity image which took you half a day to put together, you'll get like 1,000 likes. I think that's why the country or the world is moving towards the celebrity direction, because it gets a lot of traction, it gets a lot of attention. But I feel like that is not the best way to judge a stylist, because sometimes we really have no control over what goes out there. Sometimes, even if you stand in front of the door...
The biggest challenge is other people's bad taste. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. Like convincing people to better their taste and elevate it. That is the biggest challenge for sure.
Judgy much?
Seriously.
Not really. Just honest.
No, that is really interesting. Yeah. Do you also do personal styling? Do you help people Marie Kondo their closets? Is this part of what your business has extended to? And how much have you had to extend your business from the time you started? Because you start in a place and then you find that, you know, whether you like it or not, you start to occupy more place in the world.
No, absolutely. I mean, to be able to scale, you have to do multiple things. You can't just do one thing. So which is why it moved from editorial to celebrity, because there was a scope for scaling a little more over there. Then to get into personal styling or wedding styling, to runway, to campaigns. So you have to be able to do all sorts. I mean, if you're a stylist, you can't just do one thing. You're not, like I said, you're not selling a product, you're selling a service. And that service has to pertain to multiple facets of the industry. So yeah, I mean, I have done the odd personal styling job and the wedding styling jobs as well. Not as exciting to deal with, because you're not dealing with professionals there, you're dealing with people, again, with very, very specific opinions about themselves. And a lot of insecurities I think people have. So, I mean, I think that the job there is to work around people's insecurities and make them feel the best version of themselves, because you really can't try to look like someone else.
Dana, he's taking me off course a little bit, but I have to ask, you are a celebrity who influences what people buy and don't buy. What is your relationship to fashion, and how do you use clothing to communicate who you are?
You know, also because I do have a modeling background, and, you know, which gives me a slightly more fashion background, I do know what is good looking and what's not in terms of, you know, an outfit, for example. But at the same time, I do feel it is important to keep in mind your personality or body type, which I think is most important, because not everything is going to suit every body type. I have issues as well, and I dress in a way that I know will complement me and not the opposite. So, you know, we are also aware of ourselves, and I guess from that point of view, when a stylist wants to experiment, it might not always work, but then that's where you also trust the stylist, right? You trust your stylist and you know that they will eventually give you what's best for you. But yeah, I do feel that it is important to combine the two and not just blindly, you know, follow what's currently hot and in fashion because it is hot and in fashion, but you should also be able to carry it off, because if you can't, then it's just an epic fail. You know, I think.
So I'm going to bring this conversation back a little bit to business. We're running out of time, but I'm going to ask each one of you to answer something that I've been reflecting on a lot. What would you tell your younger self today? What are the lessons you've learned, and what would you tell your younger self when you started out? What would you do differently, and where would you congratulate yourself? Because I think we forget to do that often. We forget to congratulate our good instincts.
What I would tell my younger self is to just sort of chill. I think I'd always been, sorry? Okay, fine. Need to chill now as well. So I think I would just tell my younger self to chill. I was always super conscious about how my brand is going to be seen and where it's seen, and very like sort of uptight to a point, like my husband now calls it, like, you know what, you're not conscious about your brand, you're just like fussy, you know, you're just uptight and fussy, you need to just chill a bit, it's okay. So I just tell my younger self to chill a bit And I'd like to congratulate myself because I'm also like she said, I'm super shy and super awkward. In fact, when I walked in, Shweta said, "Oh my God, I'm going to hear you talk. It's the first time I'm going to hear you talk." So I'd like to congratulate myself on like actually surviving these 10 years in an industry which is like literally, it works with like being seen and networking and stuff. And I've sort of like stuck to how I want to be and still create a brand for myself. So that.
I'd actually say a lot of the same things because I sometimes when I think about it, I wish I was who I am today when I started out 10, 15 years ago as a model. Because like I said, it was that personality, you know, back then, very shy, very conscious, self-conscious, which I've overcome now. You know, when you face the camera enough, you know, you're dealing with the press, you're meeting so many new people, working with different people on different projects. You kind of open up and you learn to be yourself even around strangers, which is something I couldn't do back then. I'd always be really careful about what I said before I said it, you know, especially on a public platform. Now I'm like, you know, I'm gonna say what I think. I don't care what you see, you know. I mean, even if it's, of course, you're sensitive to, you know, to other people when you have to be, but I just feel like if I was who I am today, I probably it would have been easier. Also because I'm not from this industry. Like I don't like to call myself an outsider because I'm not an outsider anymore. But I'm not from a film family, so it is that much more challenging. But having said that, you know, I've managed to do things and come this far on my own terms, still keeping to who I am and what I believe in. And for that, I'd like to congratulate myself when I think about it. But you're right, you don't really think about these things on a regular basis. And yeah, you know, at the end of the day, I can say that I don't have no regrets, and whatever I've done, it's you know, keeping in mind who I am, and I've managed to do it on my own terms and with a little help along the way, but predominantly on my own. So I think that's, you know, at least for me, quite commendable.
I would tell myself to like stress a little less for sure. Like I'd like a little more darker hair in my head. I think I stressed a lot as a kid, and everything was the end of the world. Like I think if you stay true to yourself, like you can get away without stressing so much. So definitely that, and I'd like for myself, I wish I was a little more conscious about finances as well, a little more back in the day, because you focus so much on creatives, I think you let go of the commercial and the more practical aspects of your business. So those are the few things definitely to go back and tell yourself.
Arpita. I just feel I wish I was a little more confident about my product back then, like how I'm now. I feel that would have just pulled me up much faster, but saying that, I'm really happy that I took whatever time I took to come here, because now I have such a very prominent individualistic style that, you know, anyone can relate to mirror work and Arpita Mehta together. So I think that's kind of been my success angle, and I'm happy about that.
Thank you all so much. I kind of feel that this was a more interesting MBA session. It was a great lesson on being true to yourself, being kind to yourself, working hard, and worrying about money, something we don't do often enough. And what's really impressive is Mohit's checked his phone about 4 times while we've been talking, because he's never off work. By the way, I have a rule in the office. I put all phones in a bin and say, okay, now we'll start. But an entrepreneur can never switch off. Thank you so much. We're now open for questions. The light's in my eyes, so someone is going to have to hand the mic to whoever wants to ask any questions, please.
Hi, my question is for Arpita. Quoting from an article in Forbes, labor issues in the fashion supply chain have grown beyond that of poor working conditions and overworked, underpaid, and underage employees. There's also a high number of forced and trafficked labor in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 of the supply chain. So what is your reflection on this reality, and what are your best practices to curb this?
I actually work out of Bombay, so in terms of workmanship is very high, and at least under my organization, we make sure everyone is very well taken care of in terms of their stay, their pay. They are paid like practically weekly, not even monthly. So talking about the regular supply. What I'm trying to say is that under my supervision, everything's been pretty smooth. I've had the same team working with me since the past 10 years. So it's been a pretty smooth ride. And if you're talking about the overall working conditions of the artisans, I think it differs and it varies from organization to organization. So we can't really give a general opinion on that.
I think also the biggest offender in this case is fast fashion. Everybody who works with artisans is actually giving back to the industry, right? I think that it's your H&Ms and Zara's and, you know, those are the offenders. Otherwise, I mean, I think you could also take this question.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I agree with Arpita. So I have the same people who I started out with when I was, 10 years back. And, they started out as, let's say, like karigars, who are now actually our supervisors and things like that. So people have grown with us. But I think that's what happens. I think in small setups, like there's more personal attention to, let's say, like people who are working for you and with you. So it's almost like a family. But of course, like you said, like fast fashion, you've got H&Ms and Zara's, they've got like productions outsourced to Bangladesh and other. So of course, there the working conditions are horrible. And but from what I know, like, and from my friends and us, and we've all like, I think
we take care of our people.
Any more questions?
So my question is for Rimjit. So we all know the perils of pollution, that the garment industry is causing. So what is your effort in creating a future sustainable, kind of a responsible future?
So when it comes to sustainability, I think there is a very warped sort of understanding of sustainability currently that's happening. It's become, what I feel sustainability should be a practice, but I feel of late it's almost become like a marketing buzzword, which it shouldn't be. So in my little way, whatever I can do, let's say like for the people around me, for myself also to be sustainable. And I think all businesses, they try to be sustainable, cut down on wastages, because that's what actually makes us more profitable. So in our little way, whatever we can do to, let's say, like cut down on wastage, take care of our people, and like grow, everybody grows together, we can do. But there's not much I can do, because I don't operate on a large scale where I can change, let's say, like how the fabric or the textile itself is made. So there's not much I can do to that level, but in my small little way, whatever I can do, I do.
I have a question for Nanita. Nanita, D&G's brand has fallen in favor amongst consumers in China since the release of its racist and sexist ads that made fun of chopsticks, which led e-commerce and retail giants to remove its products and the cancellation of its fashion show. As somebody who deals with high-end fashion brands all the time and somebody who's in the business, what do you think should have been done by Dolce & Gabbana?
What should be done about them, or what should they do?
What should they have done back then to kind of deal with the ad?
Well, firstly, they shouldn't have had a meltdown on Instagram where they viciously attacked everybody. And this is what my beef with social media is. Yes, social media is the new word of mouth, but it also, just like we bother to be polite to each other when we speak to each other, I would really appreciate if they'd not had a meltdown. I think Dolce & Gabbana wasn't coming from a racist place. It was not being sensitive to. They were a little tone deaf. They weren't sensitive to cultural differences. Yes, there is no excuse for that when you go across the world and you are happy to take China's money, then you should be sensitive to sensitive to how China thinks. But they were being advised by the wrong people. So I guess, like with any good business, get the right bunch of advisors. Keep checking on them. Just don't come in and meet the first person and say, that's fine, do your due diligence. Secondly, immerse yourself in the country. If you want their money, you owe it to them to understand and respect how they think. And Indians, we're the masters of taking umbrage. So if somebody comes to our country, I feel they should bother to get to know us. But finally, social media is a wonderful tool, but it's the biggest piece of savagery out there. Just watch how you're going to use it. Does that answer your question? And you know, I'm not supposed to be talking today.
Hi. Really nice chat here. I just want to know what you think about Diet Sabya, and do you think inspiration or plagiarism? What do you suggest?
Diana, you have to answer this. Your ad campaign just now got attacked. Diana is the face of Estee Lauder, and they did a very beautiful campaign. And they got attacked. They got attacked because they felt they'd whitened the models to all look the same skin tone.
You know, I also feel like before passing comments, and that too on a public platform, you need to have them verified. You need to do a little research and find out from the people that have actually created, for example, this particular ad, before going out there and shooting off. Because there are certain things that go behind an ad campaign. Good lighting is one of them. And then if you put somebody in a room, okay, we've got really bright lights on us right now, but you know, in the same place that we did the launch, which is the two pictures that they compared. They compared us in the campaign versus the live event, which had no light. Literally, it was just ambient room light. There's bound to be differences in the final image, you know, and yeah, so I just feel, I mean, from a common point of view, a common man's point of view, that was the first thing that came to mind, because I thought that the campaign was really beautiful, and I love the fact, in fact, I was very proud to be part of it, because I love the fact that Estee Lauder had taken a stand and, you know, had these four beautiful women in four completely different skin shades, and in a big, huge campaign like that. And I think that, you know, inclusivity and diversity is suddenly becoming...
Mohit is dying to say something.
Please do, Mohit. I want to know what you have to say.
Well, not about the campaign though, but I do think it's necessary to have somebody sort of pointing out mistakes. And I think everyone makes mistakes, I think from designers to stylists to even actors. And I think it's nice to have a little bit of policing here and there. I'm not saying that they're correct every time, but it's nice to have a little bit of somebody checking people, because
but
I do think
certain responsibility goes into something like
so
that.
Like I said, not everything that they put up is correct,
yeah.
But I think a lot of the times that they've done, like for example, when they've pointed out people copying Shivan and Naresh, and they've been very blatant copies, and they've been showcased on Fashion Week runways. It's shocking that that's even allowed. So it's nice for them to call it out.
But I completely agree with that. I think that calling, that's what they're for.
Where they called out offices for not having clean bathrooms. That's journalism. That's people's journalism. So I don't know what you feel about Diet Sabya.
I love Diet Sabya, honestly, because I just feel like what Mohit said, there needs to be some sort of check, you know. You've got like people blatantly ripping people off. So, I mean, I'm not saying that their tone is always correct. I do know the comment section gets dirty, and you know, that's, I think if someone could, you know, control it, they should. But like otherwise, as a policing thing, I think we definitely need something. For
and
sure.
I completely agree. I actually follow Diet Sabya, because I think that, you know, it's very right to call out people that are blatantly copying. But I feel like in certain cases where if you've not got your facts straight, I mean, when you're talking about ripping off a piece, you've got a picture of the ripped off piece and you've got a picture of the original, and that's very clearly authentic. So, I mean, that's fine. But when you're calling out other stuff that you don't have actual factual data on, that I find is irresponsible.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My question is to everybody. Yeah, my question is to everybody. Bombay fashion is obviously very filmy, ruled by the Hindi film industry. And Delhi fashion is, I don't know, I would like your comments on it, maybe more formal. So what do you have to say about the Delhi fashion scene and the Bombay fashion scene? Thank you.
I think being a stylist, I think you would have a better opinion.
I mean, I guess every city is influenced by what it's surrounded by. So of course, Bombay, because of Bollywood, a lot of designers are very impacted by it, of course, and it's their bread and butter every day. So I do understand why there is an influence. But I mean, and of course, Delhi is more, I mean, all the design schools are here, the better designers are here, like, or the more experienced designers are here. But okay, that's not true. There's a lot of designers here. No, but I do, of course, because Bombay is, I mean, it is the heart of Bollywood. Of course, it's bound to influence the fashion there. So, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's a different market. So, it's a different kind of fashion.
On that diplomatic, democratic note, we're going to end this session. Thank you all very much, and thank you for being so fabulous.
Thank you for that enlightening discussion. May I now invite on stage Ms. Karishma Bedi to give away a token of appreciation to Nonita Kalra. May I now call on Ms. Atashi Singhania to give away a token of appreciation to Rimzim Dadu. I would now like to invite Ms. Itiva Chopra to give the token of appreciation to Mohit Rai. I would now like to invite on stage Ms. Mandira Lamba to give away a token of appreciation to Arpita Mehta. Finally, I would like to call upon the COO Frontier Bazaar, Ms. Isha Batra, to give away a token of appreciation to Dinah Penty. Frontier Bazaar is an associate and gift sponsor for this beautiful morning. Can we now have the YFLO committee on stage for a picture with the panelists? And with that, we now move on to our second session.